G'day guys, welcome back to Supercoach with DR and welcome to the Round 14 stock market video. Hope you're having a cracker of a week. We are 2 buys down, 2 to go. Really important trading for us this week. I know that for many of us, we're looking to probably complete our sides within the next couple of weeks. So very important who we go with. Some massive decisions on our hands. Again, we're not blessed with a heap of great downgrade options. We've had to break the rule this week and chuck Billy Dowling up the top after playing just the one game. If you look down the bottom, we have Darcy Wilson. If you held on to him for that extra week, you'd be a little bit disappointed there, but whatever you've done, it is definitely time to move him on now. I'm going to keep the intro really short because you will notice that the sound quality of this video may be a little bit up, maybe a little bit down. I'm not going to have enough time to complete this tonight, so tomorrow morning during my recess and lunch break, I'll have to jump into the car and try to finish off this video. So depending on what slides I get to tonight and what slides I'll have to do tomorrow, you may notice a little bit of difference in the quality of that sound. So I do apologise for that, but I'm just trying to get my best to get this out as quick as possible. Lucky we've got a Friday night game, so you've got an extra night just to take this in anyway. So I will leave the intro there, guys. As I said, hope that you're well. Let's see who's at the top of the list for the 500k plus defenders. At the top of the list this week, we have Jack Sinclair. Had his most dominant game of 2024. Started down back, then pushed into the midfield as the game went on. So a bit of a role reversal in-game. Scored 147 points from the 31 touches, 25 of those kicks. Gained over 700 metres and was a big reason that the Saints got over the line. Former All-Australian, as we know. Former top 6 primo from last year. But just really hasn't hit his straps. Had the consistency in scoring or role this year. So could this be the game that kick-starts him? We know about that lovely Marvel run coming up. He's a massive pod, particularly in the top 1-5%. So if you want to go there, if you've got faith, I suppose you can. Jordan Clark, he's certainly my most preferred trading option this week, although we are paying up a fair bit of coin for him. If you've got Luke Ryan, this could be the most enjoyable pairing in the game. Apart from a tag score of 63 when he played the Swans and Cop Jordan, his floor is 83. Only 4 scores below 100 have been that tag 63, the 83, and then a pair of 84s. So that is great for a defender. His last 3 scores are 151, 134, 127, so really nice ceiling there. We know what Freo's game style's like. It is absolutely sickening, but players like Ryan and Clark really benefit from it. He uses the ball well, has an attacking mindset, gets some bonus kick-outs if he gets to the square before Ryan does, and as we mentioned, is a decent pod. He does face Sydney again in 3 weeks, so that's a slight red flag. Be prepared for a low one there. But apart from that, it seems pretty smooth sailing for Mr. Clark. I'm a huge fan of the pick, and if I decide to bring in my last defender this week, it will be him without a doubt. Elliot Yeo hit back with a bang last week, was a tackling machine, laying 13 on the day, and high tackle numbers are always a great way to guarantee a high floor, and that's something to like with Yeo. It's a big risk selecting him off that groin injury, but if he can stay fit, he certainly has top 6 potential without a doubt. Also has high contested possessions, so 16 out of his 23 last week were contested, for example. Had 8 clearances, kicked a goal to top off that fantastic performance. So with under half the season to go, his durability risk does decrease, so we get closer to the season end. So as an option, he's at a good price for potential. I'm thinking of going there myself. I can't believe I'm saying that if I decide to not go my last defender in Clark this week. The Lizard copped a couple of hard knocks, was subbed off, which was unfortunate because he scored 99 from only the 66% TOG. Some thought Shees could only be relevant as defender. I'm going to put my hand up there, but he's really warmed into that midfield role. Look at that 3-round average. In his last 3, he's gone 117, 119, and 129, so getting better and better each week. You'd be kicking yourself if you lost the faith, trade him out a month ago. 30 touches, 12 contested, and a goal. Was a great outing. Awesome to know that he covers our next 2 tricky buys as well, so keep it up some. Bailey Dale recovered to a respectable 95 after a slow start to the game. 25 touches, but we didn't see his usual kick-friendly handball ratio. 10 out of his 25 being handballs, which is rare. So if 5 of those handballs were kicks, as we usually see, that scores what goes up to 105 to 110, I suppose. I like owning Dale. His ceiling is great, but so is his floor. Remember, if you're looking back at his history as well, he did have a sub game and a terrible game before that, so I wouldn't be paying too much attention to that if you're looking back at his scores. Crispy, he was lining up on Clary early, gave him an absolute bath. running off him with ease, beating him to the ball, and Oliver really wasn't getting the look in. Picked up 9 or 10 touches in the first, was just creating havoc. Crispy slowed up slightly, let Clary go a little bit, but ended with 104 points from his 27 touches, played a great role for the team, and he continues to score well in this midfield role, the king of durability, and he simply won't miss a game. So a pod to boot. He could tickle your fancy. Only issue is he's got the round 15 buys, so you'll own him for one, then he'll miss. Harry Himmelberg, he's had a sneaky good past 6 weeks, apart from the one failure. I've got him in a keeper draft, so I've been tracking his scores closely, so I think it's finally time to give him a mention in the stocky. His last 6 have been 116, 95, a poor 51, but then a 139, 100, and a 105. So that's better than some of the other big names. No bye to worry about. Another alternative to a Whitfield type selection. So he's one to at least have a look at if you're after a major pod. Very risky though. And Jordan Ridley, I won't go into all the numbers now because he's obviously got the bye, but I'll have a lot to say about this man next week. Hayden Young, he returns after his bye, but I'd much rather pay it for his teammate in Clark. He's had a decent season, but hasn't really reached the heights that many of us thought he would. Maxi Holmes, been a really good pod on the bye this week, so we'll discuss him next week. McGovern only had the 2 marks to go with his 23 touches, so that's what really ensured a below par score, let's just say, of 88. Without those intercept and contested marks, his ceiling really does lower. North did a good job of keeping him quiet, quelling his influence, so still a very solid pick for mine if you trust his body to get through the rest of the season. Low ownership also. Wanganeen Miller, really like him as a selection. Collected 28 touches, with 20 of those being kicks for a 90. The rare, well, do we call it a blemish here? Well, we do, don't we? It's his disposal efficiency. That was just sitting at 60%, very low for his standards. Still a pod I really like with his Marvel run, similar to Sinclair, but does have consistency and a very high floor. You could complete your backline with him after the bye if you don't want to go this week. Remember, he does have that round 15 one. Nick Martin does have the bye this week, but next week we'll have a major Martin discussion. Possibly one we could even luxury upgrade when the team is complete, but more on that next week. The Sis Dog delivered another decent score on the weekend, but still didn't crack the ton. A 98 is fine, but it's not enough to sway me into selecting him over other options we've got in our plate. 22 touches, 6 marks, doesn't really blow us away, but did gain over 550 metres, which was a second team high behind Carl Amon. And we welcome back both Ryan and Houston after the bye. The Peroxide Prince is a must-have, simple as that. And Houston stocks have declined over the last month, but a safe as houses type pick, has a nice floor, decent ceiling went on. Ryan is clear tier 1, and Houston is a clear 2-2. And Nicky Dacos, as we know, had a bit of a poor game. Neil Bullen was lining up on him early, kept him to 9 points from 3 touches in the first quarter. Dakes was running into an open goal early in the second, I've got here in the notes, but Neil Bullen, right on his hammer, stopped him from getting on the end of it. So, really good game from Neil Bullen. Unfortunately for Dacos, 0 impact, 8 touches for a measly 23 points at half time. And those with the captain on him were covering their eyes and wishing it was just a bad dream. 39% of the top 1% had the captaincy on him. And with Dacos, there's always hope that he recovers, but unfortunately things just went from bad to worse. Subbed out with a corky, but hopefully should be right for this week, and then has a bye in round 15. On to the defenders, 250 to 500k. Up the top, we have Jaden Short after his 103, but his 4 scores before this read 84, 54, 50, and 80. That's why I just can't recommend him as a pick. A ton every 5 or 6 weeks, just won't cut, unfortunately. Christian Salem, now he only had 22 touches, but used almost every one of them effectively, roaming around half back, picked off some nice targets, laid 5 tackles on his way to a score of 111. You could look at him after the bye if you got faith, but the value was probably there a couple of weeks ago. Graham and Closey both have to go. It's bye time for them, so perfect time to move them on. Thank them for their services. Closey certainly gets a bigger handshake than Graham, but cheers to both boys. Comben, really disappointing game from him. I was actually an advocate of holding him last week, looking to cover during the buys, but with that stinker of 32 in his system, it may be a choice between keeping him as cover, losing cash, just get out now. It's really up to you. 93 is a real tough one and a bit of a spew for those that own him because it's a big decision. Do you hold and potentially lose out like we did with, say, a Wilson last week, or do you just get out of Dodgeville now? up to you on that one. Lockie Whitfield enjoyed some more freedom this game, scored well with a 108, 30 touches, 12 marks was nice, but he did have 7 Muppets, which dropped his score. Led Giants for metres gained. It was the third highest scorer for the Giants in the game. I'm not a huge fan of the pick, as you know. He seems to cop a lot of attention because he is so damaging, and again, as I say every week, will most likely be a stressful loan, but he does present decent value, doesn't have another bye to worry about, so he is an option to consider if you've got the faith. Some are actually looking to move on Stewart this week and just cut their losses. No longer the reliable defensive premium that can deliver us an easy 100 plus average. He's gone downhill quickly, becoming more and more irrelevant by the week. I'm not silly enough to completely write him off, and in all fairness, he's copped some tags of late, but at the same time, his only decent recent score was due to a couple of clutch marks in the last 5 minutes and some extremely generous scaling, in my opinion, from Champion Data. So, totally your decision to hold the faith or move on, but I'd imagine he'd be a very frustrating own. And it's also time to say goodbye to Riley Bonner. After a score of 43 points from under the 12 touches, he's been good for us super coaches, although a bit of a whipping boy for Saints supporters due to his clangers. His break-even is now sitting at 144. And certainly, unfortunately, time to move on. On to the defenders under 250k, and again, not much action here this week. Lee Kalir couldn't repeat his heroics from last week, and with Buckley due back, his job security does worry me. 8 touches, 3 marks, a couple of tackles for his 55 points. As an owner, you just pray somewhere holds his spot, but in my opinion, wouldn't go near him as a trading option. Don't know if you can hear River in the back there, but a nervous wait on team sheets for this one. The ship has sailed with Dean. He's got the round 15 bye. In saying that, he has scored a pair of 70s in the last couple of weeks, and if he truly believes he keeps his spot and keeps that 70 average up, you could go there, but yeah, just not for me. We've missed a boat, I think. Will Duck Egg Dawson, as I'm dubbing him, ended up with absolute donuts after being subbed off in the first quarter due to injury. The handy thing here is his DPP status, so if you've got your Sexton, your Fisher types, then he's pretty much a loop for the rest of the year. And Pink and Draper both have had their buys. We don't invest, but we hold for sure. Draper has turned his scoring around slightly, but I wouldn't expect too much from Pink. In saying that, a 30 to 50, better than a Krispy Kreme. On to the midfielders, 500k plus, and after 1 week starter, Errol was clearly the best buy out of the big 7. Massive game from him scoring-wise, 157 points from 37 touches, 25 of those being kicks, 8 marks, 5 tackles, 5 clearances, over 700 metres gained, and a goal as a bit of a cherry on top. Playing mainly off a wing, the blitz was trying to put a little bit of time into him, but Errol simply too good. Not as much value as last week, obviously, but you can still jump on if you see more green ticks. The Noah Coaster has the bye this week. Thought he'd actually cop the tag last week, but that went to Took instead, so we'll chat about him after his bye. Will Day, he continues to break out in a big way. Now, after seeing him live the other week, I was chatting with my man Steve from SDS Supercoach. I said, mate, this guy is just so talented, and I'm starting to believe more and more that this could actually be his year, but I was worried about his lack of fitness due to missing so much football, as well as those durability concerns, but it is really, really hard to deny his premium potential. He's had scores of 142, 117, 107, and a 137 last week, so that's a really solid month from Day. 26 touches, almost half contested, laid 10 tackles, which was an equal game high. The only major fault here was giving away 4 frees, possibly that lack of meters gained as well, but the Hawks are on a rise. This bloke is a big reason for that. A real pod, but does have that round 15 bye. One for the Lone Wolves, but such a talented player, deserves some more kudos for his form over the last month. Jack Steele, 20 touches, 12 contested, 8 tackles, but he needs to get more of the pill. He used it pretty well at 80%, which got him to a 98, almost 3 figures. Not a disaster in a week where lots of mid-primos stunk it up, but there's no way I'd want to buy into him at the moment. The Bont received some pretty close attention from my man Jared Berry. Couldn't repeat his heroics from last week, only the 99 points, but in usual Bont fashion, played some time in the forward line, kicked a small bag of 3, so still managed to have an impact, just nowhere near like he has in previous weeks. And I take my hat off to Bez, did a fantastic jobs, and the boys just didn't like it from the doggies. Lib was getting right into him. They weren't happy that their captain was copping so much attention. So, look, unlucky for those who had him in the captaincy loop, but he should bounce back again next week and score pretty well against Dockers at Marvel. Zeret played extremely well to break the Shin Cotter tag. Chin. I can't pronounce this bloke's name. I'm just going to go with Chin Cotter. But he scored a 125 on the bye. So look, we'll just discuss Zeret next week. We'll get through it. LDU, another successful Big 7 pick. Actually, his lowest CBA rate for the year, with Simpkin coming in there for 60-odd%. But we know he's got a great fixture. We know about his 2023 post-buy average. He's hit form again after a real down patch in the first quarter of the season. He's only gone below 100 once in the last 7 weeks. So 101, 112, 90, which was at sub-ton, 109, 152, 117, and a 114 plays the Pies this week, who he should score well against, but the value just isn't there now, as you're paying close to your 600k. So if you jumped on and you like what you saw in the last couple of weeks in particular, congratulations. Could you jump on this week? Yeah, I think that you can. He hasn't got his bye. That's real positive with this pick, and my man Janath's got him. He's got him for a reason, ranked in the top 300 or 302 at the moment. So I'm hoping that LDU goes well for my brother Janath. And if you want to jump on, I still think it's okay. Walsh and Rao, I'm losing my voice, sorry. Both have the bye. Both been extremely underwhelming, though, over the past month. Wouldn't be investing in either player at this stage. Form just doesn't warrant it, but we'll look into them after this round. And Rory Laird, really disappointing for mine. With Crouch out, we're expecting a lot, but he only delivered his owners 86 points, 28 touches and 5 tackles. Isn't a poor game, but just looks like there are better options this year. Also heard that he's in doubt for this week with some sort of a knee issue. So look closely at the team sheets tomorrow night. And if he's out with the bye the next week, you've got a bit of a decision on your hands. My man Lockie Neal gave me a lovely 134 on debut. Really played an all-round game here. The second highest scoring player for the round out of the Big 7 we discussed last week. Did everything, and to be completely honest, and trying hard to take my owners and Lions bias away, he was underscored for his efforts. One of the biggest highlights was that goal right on the siren at the end of the second quarter. I was jumping out of my skin being at the game, but at the end of the day, I was really underwhelmed with his score. The great man collected 38 disposals, 14 of those contested, went at 84% efficiency, 10 clearances, and your 2 goals. Like, what more could this man have done? Only the 2 tackles, but his other stats well and truly make up for that. So a bit of a mind boggler there. That should have been a 150 plus every day of the week, plus twice on Sundays. But very happy with his game. The worry is the Windy tag coming up this week. He kept Took to nothing, and I expect him to do everything in his power to give Chocky a very hard time. He then plays Port, where you've got McEntee, even a Drew, who's traditionally gone with him. So it may be a tough couple of weeks coming up, but never write off Lockie, up there with the highest scoring mids in the game. Chuddy Warner was one of the disappointments of the Big 7 last week. Played a fine game, don't get me wrong, but against a lowly Cats midfield, we wanted more than a 98. Look, overall, played a solid game, 26 touches, couple of goals. He's just been hitting the scoreboard. That's really allowed him to raise his floor. I suppose only 6 of those possessions were contested and only laid the 1 tackle. So that's what lets him down there with that score. Still a really exciting player to own, but no real value in him at his current price. You're buying if you're confident that he's averaging a really good 115 plus from here. Dunks copped it a bit from Dogs fans on Friday night, but I made sure that I showed him a little bit of love, stuck up for my man. I should actually insert the clip here that I took on the mobile. So they were absolutely giving it to him when he was lining up for goal. I was shouting out, "They're jealous, Dunks. I take it back in a heartbeat." Bit of banter there. Had a bit of a laugh. But yeah, well done to Dunks. It was a pretty solid game. Look, kicked a nice goal, as I was just talking about, to the delight of Lions fans. 24 touches, half those contested. Should be a solid pick from here. Won't cop the tag either. So if you ask me who scores more this week, Dunkley or Neal, I'm going Dunkley every day of the week. And I hate to say that because I chose Neal. But yeah, with Windy, surely just goes to Lockie, not Dunks. Two tag last week, has a bye, very disappointing. Talk about him next week. Trelaw collected 30, but not a lot of impact. Did kick a goal, which was nice. Only the 94 points. Oh, Track. Well, he has the bye, but geez, the poor fella. Look, he was dominant early on, But right on the quarter time siren, Moore came crashing into his ribs. He was a very, very sore boy. Struggled to walk off the ground, but did come back on a few minutes into that quarter, into the next quarter, sorry. But yeah, no, it's no good. Remember he played with that fractured leg. Just a really tough sort of a bloke, but he was obviously hampered, soldiered on, 54 at halftime. Unfortunately, just couldn't continue on. Was subbed out. Now out for the year, a must trade. So look, get better soon, mate. A really sad state of affairs for himself and his family. Libba was the Dogs' highest scoring mid for the week with a 104, which shows how much they struggled as a unit on Friday night. 23 touches, almost half contested, 5 tackles, 7 clearances, but nothing to write home about. And with his latest concussion concerns, I'd actually be staying away as a trading option this year. I just reckon we leave Libba for 2024. And to be honest, probably from now on at his age. Butters and the Schlong come back this week, which is a big relief for me. Both Uber elites this year. But remember to check out the tag data from the Sore Play Potties. Butters could be a major target for targets during the second half of the year. Really important to go back to that table before you decide to purchase. Both should be awesome picks, so you could wait a week on Strong due to his high break even. And Jordan Dawson, again, I do apologise. I am losing my voice. I'm going to struggle through this. We're only halfway through the midfield, but I do apologise if I do sound a little bit croaky. Jordan Dawson played an admirable game, batting through a foot injury to end up on 117 points. Again, got the better of Walsh. To my frustration, 32 touches, 8 tackles. That was impressive, but his claim count was a game high 7, which really didn't help his cause. I think owners would be happy enough, given the fact he was under that slight cloud, though. On to the midfielders, 250 to 500k. Up the top, we have Kane McAuliffe. Unfortunately, started as a sub this week. Scored 32 points in just 12% time on ground, which was a good effort, but red flags with the pick now. You won't be surprised here that Presser injured himself again, so that may bode well for Kane. But after his red-hot first half the week before, it's just been all downhill from there. Lockie Sullivan only scored the 48, so disappointing for those looking for him to cover during the bye round. George Hewitt, up and down season, has a bye this week. Sharp is a hold this week. If you've held for this long, absolutely you do. Decent bye cover for the next two. Tom Green, well, what do we say about Tommy? Seems to be a fake primo at this stage. Look, I'm hoping that comment does some sort of a reverse jink and he slams home 150 this week, but he's just not looking like it. He picked up 26 touches with half contested, which is good, but it's his efficiency and lack of damage that hurts him. 6 Muppets, only the 1 tackle isn't great reading, and he's just really out of form. He's looking like a Brownlow contender early on the season when the Giants were flag favourites, but couldn't look further away from that at the moment. Even at his price, it's now hard to recommend him, but in saying that, surely he can only go up from here. Clearly the biggest failure out of the Big 7 last week, so come on Tommy, pull your finger out mate, you are absolutely killing us. And another man that's killing some of his owners is Clayton Oliver. Has the bye, but unlike other primos, and I use that word lightly with Clary at the moment, some are looking to trade him out, so we better talk about him. Look, who knows with Petrarca out whether or not that's going to be a negative or a positive. It's a bit of a wait and see, but last match he was looking terrible early on. Only 11 points to his name at quarter time. Opens up the second quarter with a free kick against Dacos to bring his total score down to 8. An absolute killer again. Then had a nice goal assist to Van Rooyen, which was nice. Also noticed his teammates missed him on a few occasions through to their poor disposal, so we can't really hold that against Clary, but did pick things up a bit in the second, picking up 8 touches, a 32-point quarter to be sitting at 43 at the main break. And that's what we do like about Clary, a 32-point quarter. He's still capable of doing decent things. Now, we're not seeing those massive 160s, 180 type scores like we have in the past with him, but in my opinion, it's not all doom and gloom. To open up the third, owners were losing it as he gave away 2 holding frees in a row to Crisp, but then again, recovered to be on track for 100 at 3/4 time. Almost there in the end with a 97 from 28 touches, over half contested. Kicking efficiency was down, a little bit handball happy, but if you're on the fence about trading, you're probably still sitting there. So for me, he didn't pass the eye test early, but as the game went on, I think that he looked better. The bye should do him good, and as Melbourne reset as a team, I'm hoping he can finish off the season well. It's up to you whether or not you want to move him on. It's a really tough decision because if you can get up to one of those real Ubers like your Sarong Butters types, then it'd be so tempting to do it. He's obviously missing this week. This is definitely the week that you're going to do it. So if you're committed to trading out Clary, we don't wait a week and then look to do it. Yeah, you've got to get him out this week, obviously because he's on the bye. So that one is totally up to you. But yeah, I'm holding faith just for now anyway. I don't really have the luxury, I don't feel, of using a trade to get him out now. I'd rather complete the side and then look to do that luxury if I can later on. The voice again. And Connor Rozee could be back on the team this week. I think that he will. You can see in the notes section there, I've got the targets and the 23. That's saying that you could target him as your 23rd man in just say a couple of weeks. So if he does play this week, a big watch for mine. On to the midfielders under 250k, and again, the cupboard is bare. This is very bleak this week, and to sum that up, Jai Clark is at the top of the list. Only a handful of touches for 9 points at half-time, but then did have a big second half to end up on 66 points, so that second half would have really pleased donors. A bit of a yin-yang type game, according to those splits in the first and second. Been a very slow burn this year, a super frustrating pick. Obviously on the bye this week. Do you keep him? Do you flip him? Completely up to you. I lost him a fair while ago now. Angwin scored a ripper 98 in his first match, but unfortunately only a 41 in his second. Look, if he was rookie priced, I'd take a much closer look, but at over 220k, I'll just have to sit this one out. Hugo Garcia actually played a good game in the Rezzies on the weekend, scored 97 fantasy points, 15 touches, 7 tackles, and 3 goals, but who knows when or if he comes back into the senior side this year. And Rogers, a pick you can move on this week without hesitation. On to the big boys in the ruck, and at the top of the list, we have man on the bye, Tom De Koning. So we'll discuss him next week, what a pod he is, and what a 3-round average he's got. Don't worry about Maxi Gorn sitting there at the bottom with his measly 136. This bloke has been averaging 139 points over the last 3, so big discussion on him next week. Nettie Moyle looks set for a shocker until he entered beast mode in the last quarter. 52 points to more than double his score for the first 3 quarters. Hit outs to advantage, took some big contested marks, had a massive impact, a big relief as he made his way to a score of 84. The pick ended up working out as I expected, made 120k, provided some decent on-field scores for the couple of buys, and was pretty much a nice short-term transaction. With Witts due back after the buy, he's an easy sell this week, and he can allow you to finish your ruck line or even swing a dogger back up there, complete another line of your choice. Cheers for your service, Nettie. Tristan Sherry played a ripping game. Doesn't have the best ruck fixture like he did in the first half of the year, but the tackle rule should help him. He's an absolute beast, an alternative to the big 4. He scored a nice 131 the weekend. Scores this year read 107, 108, 90, 115, 91, 144, 103, 133. A floor game of 82, 96, 119, and 131. So some solid scores with a very solid floor, and it's either him or the next man on the list if you're going this week. It's an obvious one. It is Brodie Grundy. Wowee. What a game he played. Loves playing at the SCG and really putting his hand up as that R2. We flagged it in the Sword Play Potty last week that he was our preferred option, and before I got Moyle in late, he was originally in my trade plans for last week, so frustrating to say the least, but what a game he played. 24 touches with 21 of those contested. Hit out to advantage galore, had such a profound impact on the game. Look, Stanley isn't much chop as a ruckman. There wasn't a heap of competition for Brodie, but he looks sublime. If his efficiency was above 45%, which is terrible, this could have been a 180. I'm jumping on him this week and hoping that this will be not a great concern, but he doesn't play at the SCG for next 2, which is a little bit of a worry. Does he put in a couple of lower scoring games? Look, potentially, but just locking him for the year, it will be the last time that I trade my rucks. After this next 2, he will have 5 at the SCG for the remainder of the season. So, given the fact he's already had his bye, the other big 3, and I'm talking about obviously your English, your Gawn, and your Marshall, they're yet to have their bye. I think Brodie is the man to bring in this week, and a big reason, I think, for Sydney's transformation this year. Great to see him doing well. Timmy English. Things didn't click for Timmy this week with another sub-90 score. If you ask Janath, if you ask George, he is such a terrible, frustrating own. It was the 6 frees against which really hurt him, and only registered half as many hitouts as he did last week. He went from 50 against Darcy Cameron in round 12 just to 22 against a Big O this week. And to be honest, English was beating all facets of the game, and the O put 43 Supercoach points on him. So at the moment, particularly given the fact he's got the bye in round 15, there's no way that I could recommend Tim English. Rowan had a solid game with 117 in what's been a rollercoaster year for the big man. A game-high 13 contested possessions, 7 clearances, 4 tackles. Got beaten in the hit-out department, but still managed to put out a decent score. You could go there after the bye if you like. The disappointing thing here was his last quarter fade-out. I've got here in the notes, when the game was on the line, only scored the 4 points, compared to Moyle's 50 plus, where he just went beast mode. So slightly disappointing ends the game from Rowan, but you're not going to complain with 117. And Maxi has a bye this week, so massive relief for his few non-owners. I wouldn't rant about it now, but damn, I reckon he was massively underscored for this game as well. Like Lockie Neal, his stats were awesome. No, I'm not going to go into it now, but ripped off for sure. On to the forwards, 500k plus. Up the top we have Dylan Moore. Couldn't repeat his heroics from last week, scoring 89 from 19 touches, 5 tackles and the 2 behinds. If he kicks straight, he probably gets to 100. His fixture really opens up from here. Plays the Tigers before the bye, then West Coast in round 16, followed by Geelong. Putting his hand up as the bloke to push into that top 6 behind the likes of you got Heaney, Zorko, Flanders. I may even put Fisher there, the way he's playing at the moment. His ceiling is huge. Unfortunately, his floor is lowish, but those scores do seem to balance up, so you can certainly go there if you want. Fisher, he was on 134 at one stage, but lost a heap of scaling when he came off late in the quarter due to cramp. An absolute seagull who is very fun to own. Becoming a must-have forward, a lazy 36 touches in arguably the best role in Supercoach. He's already had his bye, great DPP status, can cover multiple lines, doesn't look like slowing down. Great option up forward, but if you're having to pay up more and more and more, then the question marks do start to get big. You've got McKercher coming back, so I don't think Sheasel's going to go back there. I think he's pretty much going to be in the midfield from now until the end of the season, so potentially a couple of small red flags, but in current form ways going, you just cannot deny Mr. Zach Fisher. Flanders dominated as we expected against the Saints, basically 3 points for the big distributors every week against them. Well done if you chuck the VC on him. We finally saw a ceiling game, which was fantastic. A must-have, not much more discussion needed. Got the bye this week. Dogger is coming off his bye. Provides great cover in the ruck, and that's the major positive as a pick, not necessarily his scoring. Fantastic insurance. If one of your rucks go down and you don't have a Dogger, you don't have, let's just say a playing R3, you've got your Livingston with no loops, then you're looking at a donut, or you've got a forced trade, and if it's just for the 1 week, it's a really tough decision. So, look, if Shrek gets injured again, his stocks will rise through the roof, but I still think he's a decent insurance pick in your forward line Dogger. Heaney, he was on for a massive score at halftime with 70 plus, but slowed up in the second half. Only finished on 116, which was a little bit of a letdown. I had him as my VC. 26 touches, 2 goals, 2 and 5 tackles. Possibly deserve a little bit more than that 116, but his efficiency was down at 69%, which hurt. Still an absolute must-have forward. Jump on whenever you like, if you are one of the few that don't own him. Waterman, another ton for the surprise packet of 2024. Another 3 goals to add to his season tally. And for all those people, such as myself, I've put my hand up for this, that labelled him as a trap early on. He's laughing in our faces now. Kudos to the man. Really happy for him. And I still can't get my head around his transformation in form. But well done, mate. Well done. Hats off to you. Zorks had a pretty average game by his 2024 standards with a 95, 23 touches. Still led the way for Lions for metres gained, close to 600. Did some damage. Those big ceiling scores now out of his system, so you can trade him in at a much more friendly price over the next week or two. Nothing's really changed in regards to his role, and although his durability is always going to be slightly questionable due to past injuries and age, I see him as a pretty safe pick in our forward lines, and again, pretty much a must-have pick. Three, two, one. Onto the forwards, 500k plus. Up the top we have Dylan Moore. Couldn't repeat his heroics from last week, scoring 89 from 19 touches, 5 tackles and the 2 behinds. If he kicks straight, he probably gets to 100. His fixture really opens up from here. Plays the Tigers before the bye, then West Coast in round 16, followed by Geelong. Putting his hand up as the bloke to push into that top 6 behind the likes of what you got Heaney, Zorko, Flanders. I may even put Fisher there, the way he's playing at the moment. His ceiling is huge. Unfortunately, his floor is lowish, but those scores do seem to balance up, so you can certainly go there if you want. Fisher, he was on 134 at one stage, but lost a heap of scaling when he came off late in the quarter due to cramp. An absolute seagull who is very fun to own. Becoming a must-have forward, a lazy 36 touches in arguably the best role in Supercoach. He's already had his bye, great DPP status, can cover multiple lines, doesn't look like slowing down. Great option up forward, but if you're having to pay up more and more and more, then the question marks do start to get big. You've got McKercher coming back, so I don't think Sheasel's going to go back there. I think he's pretty much going to be in the midfield from now until the end of the season, so potentially a couple of small red flags, but in current form ways going, you just cannot deny Mr. Zach Fisher. Flanders dominated as we expected against the Saints, basically 3 points for the big distributors every week against them. Well done if you chuck the VC on him. We finally saw a ceiling game, which was fantastic. A must-have, not much more discussion needed, got the bye this week. Dogger is coming off his bye, provides great cover in the ruck, and that's the major positive as a pick, not necessarily his scoring. Fantastic insurance. If one of your rucks go down and you don't have a Dogger, you don't have, well, let's just say a playing R3, you've got your Livingston with no loops, then you're looking at a donut, or you've got a forced trade, and if it's just for the 1 week, it's a really tough decision. So, look, if Shrek gets injured again, his stocks will rise through the roof, but I still think he's a decent insurance pick in your forward line Dogger. Heaney, he was on for a massive score at halftime with 70 plus, but slowed up in the second half. Only finished on 116, which was a little bit of a letdown. I had him as my VC. 26 touches, 2 goals, 2 and 5 tackles. Possibly deserve a little bit more than that 116, but his efficiency was down at 69%, which hurt. Still an absolute must-have forward. Jump on whenever you like if you are one of the few that don't own him. Waterman, another ton for the surprise packet of 2024. Another 3 goals to add to his season tally. And for all those people, such as myself, I've put my hand up for this, that labelled him as a trap early on. He's laughing in our faces now. Kudos to the man. Really happy for him. And I still can't get my head around his transformation in form. But well done, mate. Well done. Hats off to you. Zorks had a pretty average game by his 2024 standards with a 95, 23 touches. Still led the way for lines for metres gained, close to 600. Did some damage. Those big ceiling scores now out of his system, so you can trade him in at a much more friendly price over the next week or two. Nothing's really changed in regards to his role, and although his durability is always going to be slightly questionable due to past injuries and age, I see him as a pretty safe pick in our forward lines, and again, pretty much a must-have pick. On to the forwards, 250 to 500k. Ollie Dempsey, only the 50 points on the weekend, so fine to move on now, although he's got that low break even. He's been a really solid selection this year. Jolly Boy, he was just okay, 12 touches, 83% efficiency and a few marks. Sadly, managed to scrape into my best 18 with his 53 points. I think we hold for this week and then probably move him on before his bye. But in saying that, his DPP status will allow for some flexibility with moves going into the future, or else, if you can just hold him on your bench and use him as cover between your mids and your forwards. But up to you what you want to do with Joel, but for this week, is a definite hold for me. Jai Simpkin, now, here's an interesting one. Attracted a lot of interest after a nice score of 125 plus. Now, I may get some egg on my face for this one, but I smell a trap. Let's quickly take a look at last week's game, and I'll tell you why I think he's trappish. He collected 18 kicks, which is a season high, 10 handballs, season high, 7 tackles, season high, and 2 goals, also a season high. He attended a season high 65% CBAs and got massive scaling for those 2 goals. That was absolutely huge. Without them, he would not have reached 100, in my opinion. So all that seems great, doesn't it? But can he keep the numbers up? If he can, he'll be a fantastic pick, but let's look at his past numbers. Now, he's only reached a triple figure score on 3 occasions since last year. Now, although he was the most preferred CBA mid, coming in at 60%, his scores from this year read 60, 43, 64, 58, 61, 52, and then that big 129. My question is, if he doesn't kick those late goals and receive that generous scaling, are we even looking at him this week? If he goes 70 over the next 2, he'll get to around 400k. But then his break even gets back up to the 90s, and I could start to see him even decline again. So I could be completely wrong. And if you think he can turn it around for you, then go for it. He's been playing through some injury this year, but with North's first win, that's another positive for him. I don't see many more coming. Sorry, Causa. Sorry, Big J. And his history suggests that this week could have been one out of the box. So he's not cheap at 361. Look, I know he's a bit of a big name being a captain. Never been a big name Supercoach wise, but like maybe 3 years ago, I reckon I got him as a breakout 4 potentially, maybe 4 years ago, and things were okay for a little while there. But for me, I don't like the look of Simpkin. His price is attractive for some, but take a look at his other scores from this year. I understand maybe a different role this week, but does he keep it up? Just too many question marks for mine. I'm not going near him. I think he's a little bit of a trap. Nat 5, he'll be much better off for the rest, and hopefully in no need of a rest in the near future. Great to see him hit 100 plus before the bye after, let's just say, a few lean weeks where he just didn't look like it, did he? But he'll provide some really nice cover over the remaining buys. Not a trade-in option for me, but I'd be 100% holding as an owner. Alex Sexton has the bye this week, and I'm hoping he keeps his spot when Power comes back. Currently my F6, and he's been finding a heap of the pill, just not using it overly well and being effective with it at times. I think his DT was 130 and then 87 for his Supercoach. So yeah, a bit of a wait and see. He has a bye obviously, but yeah, we'll talk about him next week. Roller Garcia continues to impress me. He had a really nice 80-point game on the weekend. Being able to watch him live, he provided the Dogs with some really nice spark at times. 23 touches, 11 of those contested, and a goal. It was a really good effort in a pretty substantial loss for the Dogs, and I think he was one of their better players for mine. He can hold his head high after that performance, and his job security is absolutely rock solid. He was a really good pick. I'm spewing I didn't go there myself. Bolton delivered a mid-80s score, so no ceiling, no floor this week, rotating between mid and forward. Could have been a 100-plus score if he kicked straight. Definitely left points at the floor with his inaccuracy, kicking only just the 3 behinds. And Lipinski, look, he's a pod option. Decent game with a 110, 24 touches, 7 tackles, and a goal. Mainly a half-forward role. He's been a little bit all over the place this year, though, with his scores. So 87, 56, 100, 67, 56, 114, 68, 99, 84, 54, 100. 77 and 110. So as I said, a little bit over the shop. My man Dan Mashman has him and was wrapped with him last week. So shout out to you, legend. If you like him, you could go there, but I don't see him as a super reliable type pick. A definite pod though. Tommy Powell's a hold at his current price, given the fact he's already had his buy. I doubt whether or not he'll be close to a keeper, but in a week where we're struggling for warm bodies, I think it just makes sense to hold, as his break-even is still just in the green. Big Harry we'll talk about next week, along with his mate Charlie Curnow, second from the bottom. Caldwell interests me as a potential trade-in option next week as well, to complete our forward lines. Chat about him then. McRae, only the 59 points in another performance that would be leaving owners shaking their heads. Just not the pick or player he once was, and most likely needs to be upgraded at some point now. And Mr. Darcy Wilson had a mare, to put it kindly, and was literally unsighted in the first half. Duck eggs for Darcy. Should have opened up his own shop, Darcy's Donuts, this guy. He is leaking cash at a rapid rate and really undoing all of his great work for us this year. 25 points just doesn't cut it. And another one we thank for a great year, but time to look at him in your rear view mirror. He has got to go. And we'll finish off with the forwards under 250k. Thank you very much for sticking with me, and apologies for the lack of quality with my voice. It's been very up and down, very croaky. I'm absolutely losing it at the moment, mispronouncing worms. That was meant to be a little joke words. If I'm having to explain my jokes, then things aren't working. We are operating at weird hours now. Let's get this slide done. So at the top, we've got Toby McMullen. Started as a sub, which meant that a few people had to back out of their original plans and move to a Dawson or a Hutchinson type. With Cogs out, I thought he might be a chance to avoid the vest to start off with at least, but wasn't the case. But this guy's points per minute are crazy. When he was subbed on for Brown, he managed to score 50 points from just 24% TOG. 5 touches, 5 tackles, so did some dirty work. If only he could get a full run at it, he could have delivered a stunning average for his price. Billy Dowling, now he is the rule breaker for this week. I don't like to include players that have only played the one game, but I think Dowling is a little bit of a different situation because, again, we are really desperate. And I could have also Probably put Nathan Kruger in here, who's a ruck forward at 123k. We know that Cox is out at the moment. Might check for another couple, but he plays this week most likely, then has the bye. A little bit unsure, but you certainly could go Kruger this week if you want to go early as well. But back to Dowling, the rule breaker, only played the one game, but seems like one of our better downgrade options, particularly with Crouch out. It seems that Billy will finally get his opportunity, get a decent run at it, playing mainly across half forward, so not in his natural position. He still picked up 17 touches, kicked a goal late, also took the 9 marks, so great scoring pedigree at other levels, and I know many Crow supporters are glad he's in the team, rate him highly. Someone like George absolutely loves him. So I'd really like to see him get a run through the midfield in his natural position. But again, bit of a wait and see. And Nick's almost hinted that he may even be the sub. He did say that he'll play again this week, but he just wasn't sure in what role that would be. So I may have inferred that completely wrong. But I was thinking, is he going to be the sub? However, after that, I then found out that Laird was looking a little bit sore and maybe not available for this week. So I'm hoping that Billy gets a full game. His DPP status is really handy. Will obviously be in the bubble after his bye, so you could wait and then jump on then. But for many of us, we really need a downgrade option now, and he presents as one of the best this week. So it's always risky to go early, but we just aren't blessed with fantastic options at the moment. My boy Logie Morris continues to develop really well, cementing a regular spot as our third tool, as our third tool in the best 22. I flagged him, what was it? It was on the experts panel, I think it was pre-season, and the Herald Sun as a smoky pod rookie, and he's done the job for the very select few that have traded him in. 80 points against the Dogs. Only the 10 touches, but 7 were contested. Some contested marks shown there as well. Again, hit the scoreboard. A really nice running check side goal. So I'm a huge fan of this bloke as a player. As a pick at this stage, no way we can actually look to bring him in. Brucey boy had another really solid game with a 70. Met him before the game on Friday night and then caught up with him again on the Saturday morning. Tell you what, he is such an awesome bloke, very quietly spoken, very humble, genuinely loves the club, just signed on for another year, which is also fantastic for him, the family. Great to have that security. He 100% deserves it, and to be honest, I think he should have got an extra year on top of that deal. But anyway, he's been playing on a wing with Berry spending a little bit more time in the midfield now that his shoulders are holding up more. It was a tough game to score for Brucey when he was on that dead wing opposed to Caleb Daniel, but he tackled really well, absolutely nailed Sanders in that brutal tackle. Love to see that aggression from Brucey, and it's all the little things like that that have really helped him to cement a spot in the 22, and he's even avoided the sub-vest with Bailey and Stas back. So really great to see there. And last one we have here is Kel Shadir. A great story. Probably played his best game, in my opinion, for the club on the weekend. Break even of 20, but you can't go there at 212k. And just a couple of extra blokes that I didn't include this week. Lockie McNeil actually played a full game, only registered the 43 points, not an option to look at. Another rule breaker very quickly is Hutchinson, a 102k player, one of Spilsy's mates. I think he played with him in Bendigo or somewhere or other. Only 40 points from 4 touches and a few tackles. Kick one behind, but no real impact. So hopefully he'll be better for the run and an option if you're really strapped for cash. Still has the incoming buy though, and I'm pretty sure that Allen is also due back soon. So that's it for this week, guys. All the best of luck with your trade ins and your trade outs, and I'll see you soon in the next one. Cheers, bye.